Former New York Governor Andrew Cuomo is back in the news, and he's taking the first steps to stage his own comeback campaign. The Democrat gave a speech at Brooklyn Church on Sunday, his first public appearance since leaving office, in which he condemned cancel culture.
According to the Associated Press, this came a week after Cuomo's team launched a digital and television advertising campaign pushing the message that he was driven from office unfairly. Cuomo said prosecutors used cancel culture against him to, quote, effectively overturn an election. Are we allowed to talk about this right now?
Oh, yeah. No election was overturned. Let's be clear.
Right, yes, that's right. That's right. So I don't know, are we allowed to question this? But apparently he is allowed
we got to ask the YouTube executives first what the rule is.
I hope the audience can tell how bitter and angry we are.
Right. Well, Cuomo is about to get himself canceled.
We haven't gotten our talking points on this one, so go ahead. Yeah.
If Cuomo, he's condemning cancel culture, but if he keeps saying that they were overturning an election, then he's going to get canceled himself. I mean, look, if he wants to stage a comeback and he wants to run again for office, fine. Let him. That's democracy, right? Let the people of New York decide. And maybe he's right. Maybe the people of New York didn't really want him ousted from office, and he just got undue pressure from other people, and maybe they'll want him back in office. But he won't know until he runs again. And
I think so political figures being held responsible for bad political decisions they made, things they did in office, is just definitionally not cancel culture. We, the people, get to decide who the elected officials are. Now, with Cuomo, he kind of got pushed out of office for the sexual misconduct stuff, when, in my opinion, probably in your opinions too, the getting people killed and then covering it up was the thing he should have been driven from office for, and that didn't quite happen. But he did, we know that his policies got people killed, and then that he covered it up in order to make money from his stupid book. And that's a really, really bad offense. It's a possibly criminal offense. It's continued to be looked at. So there's no comeback, even if maybe the sexual harassment stuff is slightly more nebulous or open-ended, how much at fault he was for each and every single thing he did, although there's lots of examples. That's my take.
Yeah, right. And what's outrageous is he's making a bunch of different moves to set himself up to sort of be like the Al Franken. Since Al Franken hasn't really tried to be the Al Franken and make a comeback, he's like, oh, I'm going to kind of try to channel the kind of mainstream Democratic outrage at the way that the Al Franken situation unfolded and channel that over to me. So first he makes the move that he's so far he's gotten away effectively with the nursing home scandal, where he gave nursing homes immunity, then he forced nursing homes to take COVID positive patients. Thousands of them died, and then he covered it up so that he could continue to sell his $5 million book. So he skates past that by saying, well, that wasn't what I was pushed out for. It was actually cancel culture. And he makes another skate move where he says, I was just kind of like, it was locker room talk, and I didn't realize that times had changed, trying to hope that people forget how serious the allegations against him were and how numerous those allegations were, and how a lot of the women didn't end up coming forward by name publicly because they were investigated, their charges were deemed to be credible, and as a result, he resigned. And so they didn't have to come forward. So it's that extra move, like, it's a bunch of anonymous charges that I did some locker room talk and I shouldn't have. And so he's going to try to say that that's all he did, and so he ought to be welcomed right back in as a rebuke to the kind of scolds of cancel culture. And that's, I think, one thing people should take away from this, that if you're one of those scolds of cancel culture, you're so disliked now by the public that even Andrew Cuomo thinks he has a path back to power by positioning himself as against you.
Well, that's the problem with why, when they went after him for the sexual harassment and sexual assault stuff, that was the problem. I mean, they should have gone after him for the nursing home stuff.
Yeah.
They should have gone after him for the deaths. You can kind of excuse away, and many people have, and they have been able to be accepted back into society to some level. You can excuse bad behavior or locker room talk, and you could say, well, I did that blackface thing, but that was a really long time ago, and I didn't know better back then, but now I do, so I won't do it today. You can get away with that and make those excuses. It's harder to say, yeah, all those people that died, but that was back then, and now I know that people shouldn't be killed off. That's a much more difficult case to make. But because they went after him for what they went after him for, they paved a way, almost maybe purposefully, to allow him an avenue back in. And ultimately, again, I mean, whether or not I would vote for the guy is one thing, but the people of New York will be able to get to decide on this. And, if he chooses to run again for office, then they will let their will be known. It's possible, I suppose, that they would decide, he's repented for those sins of, being way too handsy with women, and they'll just kind of wash it away like that. And maybe he'll be back in the public spotlight and get an ambassadorship or something along those lines. I don't know, but that was the mistake they made by going after him for something that people can just kind of say, I didn't know any better, rather than the crime that I think a lot of people would have been much more disgusted by.
Well, I think some people on the right their belief is that Cuomo was not gone after for that stuff because it also impugns other Democratic officials.
Totally.
Gretchen Whitmer, the governor of Michigan, has been accused of having a very similar policy. We've had journalists, independent journalists on the show, people of not of the hardcore right or anything, not like rabid Republicans, saying that there is something to the allegations against Whitmer. So that is, the reason, and there's, some weirdness with the Michigan Attorney General, like not looking into it and not looking into various other things, which don't make a lot of sense to me. But that's on the table, and so that you don't want to, you don't want to end up getting, if you are the Democratic Party or relevant decision makers, you don't want to bring down everyone. So this was a nice, tidy. Well, he's a sexually harasser, so he has to go. That doesn't call into question. That doesn't hurt the system. Is the way I describe it.
There were also also donors, like big, very powerful donors involved in the nursing home scandal, and also it then opens up the Pandora's box of revisiting Democratic handling of COVID. Mm-hmm. So, and they would rather move past that, and also they had him dead to rights on the sexual harassment stuff because he didn't. What was so extraordinary about Cuomo is that a lot of this was post Me Too. So his whole thing, where he's like, "Oh shucks, I didn't know that norms had changed."
Right.
It's like, where were you in? This stuff was happening like months ago, and he was still doing it.
Yeah.
He's now getting sued by this officer who, he went to this cadet graduation. And he sees this really attractive female officer, and he's like, "I want her on my detail." And they're like, "Well, sir, being on the state Secret Service detail requires all of these qualifications. It's a plum assignment." He's like, I want her on my detail." And then she's now suing him for like improper touching and other allegations. Like, this is recent stuff, and he's trying to pretend like this was all in the past, and now he didn't realize things had changed. Okay, sure, buddy.
Amazing. Wow. It's incredible.
We'll see if he runs again, and we'll see how they vote, I suppose.
This is the problem with democracy. Bad people sometimes.
And it's a problem with democracy.
I don't have to defend democracy.
When somebody has an endless war chest and can basically lie to people and produce a fake will and then point to that will as well, that's just the will of the people.
Sure helps when your brother, which he won't have this advantage anymore, when your brother is a leading news anchor for the important, relevant news channel.
I'm sure he'll do the same thing. He was just, it was cancel culture, and he was boys being boys.
Yeah.
Anyway, we will have more Rising right after this.